Clerk will call the roll in a minute. Say, I'll teach you. You were
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
here.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Andy H. Wynn, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation this morning will be delivered by Reverend Ralph Emerson. Reverend Emerson serves on our JPS Hospital Board, does a great job. We appreciate your service there and appreciate you coming down this morning.
Thank you, and I'd like to just say congratulations to those of you who were reelected.
Thank you, Pastor.
My vote went the right spot. Shall we bow? Now, Father our God, we thank you for today and the gift of life. We thank you, Master, for your leadership and direction. We thank you for your keeping power. And, oh, Father, we thank you for the discernment that you will give each commissioner to understand and the wisdom to gather in and objectivity to move forward. We thank you, Lord, that we as constituents would receive and accept those decisions that will be made for the betterment of our county, our city, and our state. Thank you for your keeping power. In the name of you, our Father, and your Son. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Reverend, for coming down today. Thank you, Reverend.
Good to see you, Pastor.
Manius?
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of court, we have numerous agenda announcements today. Let's start with the Administrator's Office. Item 9A1, we're going to ask that we hold this for 1 week. There's some corrections we need to make on that. On item 9A2, there's a correction in the court communication. It's just a date issue. It doesn't have anything to do with the order itself. On the Administrator's Office also, 9A11, which is the out-of-state travel request, we have a corrected travel request there. We're not adding anyone. I believe that it indicated that the funds were coming from community development. Actually, it's coming from public health. We've gotten you a corrected one in the book. Also, members of court, as it relates to transportation services, item 9M1, we're going to hold that for 1 week. There's a discrepancy that we need to correct in that document. Also, just to advise the court that when we come to appointments to various boards, we will have one appointment that we'll be making to the Sheriff's Department Civil Service. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Board members, you have before you the minutes of the meeting of June the 19th.
Move approval. Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Under proclamations and resolutions, Commissioner Brooks, I believe you have a resolution.
I move ratification of the resolution celebrating Juneteenth, already presented.
Second. A motion is second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. A couple of things that I want to do. I guess the first thing that we want to do is recognize Renee Couch from Comal County. She's the treasurer down there, and she comes this morning to present one of our own commissioners with a award, Best Practices Award.
Judge, Commissioners, Thank you for having me. On behalf of the TAC Leadership Committee, we appreciate being able to do this important award in person. To start, the County Best Practices Awards is an annual program created by the Texas Association of Counties Leadership Program to honor innovations, achievements, and improvements to service deliveries by all 254 Texas counties. The goal of the program is to recognize and promote model programs that save taxpayer dollars, increase the efficiency and effectiveness of services, address common local government challenges, or represent an inspiring community achievement. Winning programs must be replicable in other counties across the state. This year, Tarrant County was one of 4 Texas counties honored with a County Best Practices Award for Your Empowering Seniors event, aimed at helping the county's senior residents overcome topics relevant to aging, such as isolation, transportation, health care, financial security, identity theft, and employment. Tarrant County's Empowering Seniors is the result of work done by the county's senior task force formed in 2009 by Commissioner Gary Fickus. The task force consisted of frontline service providers such as senior center directors, nonprofit representatives, seniors, and caregivers. The task force's objective was to figure out a way to help the county's retirees navigate the complex web of government agencies, healthcare organizations, and financial institutions, as well as helping seniors dealing with loneliness, caregiver stress, and general life issues that come with aging. Through its work, the task force recommended the county create such an event, one that would include comprehensive healthcare screenings and relevant programs. The first Empowering Seniors event took place in October 2009, and they grew from there. It filled to its capacity of 1,100 seniors and caregivers. The event has helped Tarrant County seniors get healthcare screenings and become more familiar with area resources. It has improved the county's relationship with area seniors, showing that the county cares about aging issues, and has formed new partnerships with local nonprofit agencies. And thanks to sponsorships and vendor participation, the county was able to hold the event at no expense to the taxpayers. In fact, the 2010 and 2011 events made money, which went to 6 nonprofit transportation agencies that serve Northeast Tarrant County. I'd like to end with a quote from Commissioner Fickus. He says, "Senior citizens are the fastest growing segment of our community, and we want to address topics that are extremely relevant to them. This is a critical time for these individuals and for our community. It is crucial that we address these needs and help them deal with present and future situations." With all of that being said, it is my pleasure to present to Tarrant County and Commissioner Fickus the 2012 County Best Practices Innovation Award. I will tell you, it was a hard process picking. I was one of those that got to pick, and it was well-deserved.
No, that's a little. Y'all scoot forward and get in front of the
Everybody
podium.
get back there. We're going to move. Before you do that, let me get out.
You were there, you could be part of it.
Fickus getting, you know.
Can't see the back, Rebecca, okay. Rebecca, get closer to me on the right side. Okay, now, 1, 2, 3, chicken.
Thank you. I want to thank my staff. This couldn't have happened with the other ones that put in all the time. And all of our volunteers, so thank you very much.
And we have a video that
We
we'd
have a
like
video.
that we'd like to show from
Sure.
the event.
I'll get that. Don't worry.
Roll them, Duff. Maybe we don't have a video. There we go. See it right here, Jamie.
Wonderful thing I've ever seen. It's really good. It's I've got more information here. It'll take me at least 6 months to read it all. But I've been looking for a lot of this information, and it's hard to find, even on Google Box. And now it's everywhere, and I love it.
That people just have on their calendars because they know they're going to get quality access to the resources in the community. They're going to get access to some wonderful breakout sessions and hear some keynotes, all of which are designed to help folks care for older adults and help older adults find out what is in the community that might speak to their particular needs. It's a wonderful collaborative event that brings together all kinds of organizations from all over the county and allows us to focus on older adults and their needs. I don't know what we do without it. I'm glad it started. I hope it never stops.
Again, we want to congratulate Commissioner Fickus, and we are talking about the possibility now of doing it in different locations throughout the county because a lot of times one of the big needs for the seniors are the transportation issues, and that coupled with the fact that they don't with all the construction that's going on, especially out in the northeast part of Tarrant County right now, it makes it difficult to sometimes get out there. So we're in the process of looking at the possibility of doing that. And again, we want to congratulate Commissioner Fickus on a great idea and one that has really developed into a great event. At this time, I'll take a motion to receive and file.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion to receive and file. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. And last week, we also, on another issue, attended the Greater Fort Worth Builders Association. And at that event, our own Renee Lamb received the Spirited Award, Individual Award for this past year. Commissioner Fickus was nominated for an award and but got edged out by the mayor, who was not there because of her biking accident. But I want to congratulate Renee, and Renee, come on forward and let me give this to you. And again, those folks had some great things to say about you, and some of them I know that you've had some conflicts with in the past, so it's good that they were able to work through that and still feel like they were very, very flattering of the way Tarrant County worked with different builders, and so we appreciate very much your work. I didn't see him take a picture. He'll take a few minutes.
I said it last week. I was really surprised by this, but I'm very honored, and it was nice to get an opportunity to remember what a great job I have and what a great staff that I work with. Sometimes I forget that. You get caught up in the arguments with these builders, and I will certainly remind them of this reward when we come in arguing about our regulations the next time. But thank you very much for this, and I appreciate all the help that y'all give us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Renee. Court members, you have before you the consent agenda.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Manius?
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the Court, we have two remaining items this morning. We can go to item number 2 on the Administrator section. We're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve addendum number 3 to a contract between the county and TCU, which extends the agreement for 3 additional years beginning August 1st, 2012.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Finally, members of the Court, on item number 3, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court consider and approve an exception to the county's travel policy as it relates to JP Precinct 2. This will allow 2 of the clerks to attend a conference July 18th through the 20th in Rockwall, Texas.
Move for approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
John, did you want to mention your score from yesterday?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
But I stayed out of the water.
Personally.
Personally.
You personally stay.
Well, I stayed out of it with the balls too, but this time I was successful with both.
We
didn't
still
go
ha-
swimming. I didn't go swimming.
We still have those pictures from.
I know you do. I remind Bradford of that every time I see him. Ms. Tidwell, would you like to go ahead and come forward now and save me?
It was hot enough. If you'd gone in yesterday, it might have felt good, right?
No,
No? Okay.
that was a pretty nasty little pond. I don't think I wanted to go in there even to cool down.
We have several items for the court's consideration this morning. The first and second items both deal with, item number 1 deals with authorizing the law library to accept credit cards with the various convenience fees paid by the customers as outlined in your court communication. We've reworked with certified payments, and other departments who wish to take credit cards can be added. The next we'll ask is for the medical examiner's office also is asking to take credit cards. The agreement allows that with Commissioner's Court approval. So with that, I'm requesting, I guess, both items 1 and 2 would be approval to allow the law library and the medical examiner's office to accept credit cards, again, with the fee paid by the customer.
Approval of both items 1 and 2.
Second.
We have a motion and
What
second
is the medical examiner selling?
There's some permits.
parts.
No. Cremation permits. It's not a large dollar amount at all, but it will allow easier access for people to make these payments.
Guys.
Any other questions?
No, I'm done.
Please vote. Motion passes. Both motions pass unanimously.
Thank you. Item number 3, I'm requesting that you receive and file the auditor's review of the Tarrant County Department of Human Services. In the report, we did have some fairly significant concerns. You have the response from management attached. From our perspective, they've worked very cooperatively with us at this point and have addressed or will address our understanding all of our concerns and issues. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Move approval to receive and file. Second.
We have a motion and a second. You said they are working with you in
Yes.
in that regard.
Yes.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our next item is to ask you to receive and file our report on the Tarrant County Sheriff's Office control over inmates' properties. On this one, we didn't have quite the same level of cooperation. We were prohibited from looking at the area that we initially asked to review. We did not have the access. We went ahead and were given access to the areas primarily associated, again, with cash, but not the property. The response that you have attached to the court communication today, while it was addressed to me, was never delivered to me by the sheriff. It was delivered directly to the administrator's office to be attached to the audit report. Therefore, it was also not discussed with me. So while it's a 5-page document, I didn't have any dialogue with the sheriff about it. I think there's still some misunderstanding between the sheriff and my office in regards to some of the items that are in the document. There's, I guess, only 2 areas that I'll reference. When we're speaking about the money and the reconciliation, there is still a lack that we could observe of sign-off by the inmate for all instances of cash that come into the jail. And it's not about the reconciliation that's done at the money desk. It's about, again, having that form completed and having the inmate and the officer sign that we took money from this particular inmate. Again, I didn't get a chance to discuss that with the sheriff, but his response to me doesn't seem to clearly understand what our concerns were. It was only the one incident, but we will continue to address that one item with them. The only other thing I wanted to mention is while there's a lot of discussion in the sheriff's response of the $600 being the only amount of loss, there are a lot of items that go to risk management. I'm sure there's a lot of items that don't ever come to our attention. The ones that do go to risk management, in many instances from our review, it's difficult for the risk management folks to make a decision about whether or not to reimburse the inmate who's requesting compensation for their loss. Many times the records are not adequate or the records don't exist. The one example in there that I'll cite, for instance, is they note that we have a stone ring, a ring with stones in it. Well, I know they're not jewelers, but it's difficult to, and then when the person left, they didn't get their ring back. I understand that these individuals are inmates, but I also think that there could be maybe a little bit more effort placed on this, but in that respect, the sheriff and I clearly have a difference of opinion because he cited all these reasons why it's too costly to look at doing anything differently. So I'm not going to pursue anything else related to the property. That's between the sheriff and the court. I know that jail standards and other folks go in and look at the operation of the jail. I would have to think, though, that this is an area that probably doesn't receive a lot of review unless there are complaints. Recently, my understanding was there was an issue associated with disappearing electronics, and that was addressed very quickly. That was not part of this audit. So this is clearly dealing with non-electronic items. This was dealing with clothing, those kind of personal effects. We have concerns in this area, but again, we were not able to resolve our concerns, and at this point, I just ask that you receive and file the report.
Move to receive and file.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Did you said a couple of times, like with that deal that you and the sheriff, did you actually sit down and communicate or meet with the sheriff at all during this process?
We met with the sheriff twice. Initially was to ask for permission to have access to the property. He explained that that would not be allowed and what we could have access to. And then when we drafted our report, we also sat down with the sheriff, Chief Knowles, and the other gentleman, I can't think of his name. Is his name Alan? Alan Dennis, yes. And he references that there were several initial findings that were erroneous. That wasn't the case. There were some things that we were trying to clarify. We did meet that day, and then when we made some changes to the report, we sent him the report that you have in front of you, and we asked for his response. We're always interested and willing to sit down with the person that we've worked with to make sure that if they disagree with what we're saying, if they don't see eye to eye, that we get back together, though, and that we have the facts, that we are in agreement at least with the facts, whether we agree on what should be done about the facts. And again, the document was sent to the administrator's office late Friday afternoon without a copy ever even being sent to my office.
What recourse do we as a court have to encourage compliance on behalf of the sheriff and other department heads with the auditor's office? We're dealing with taxpayers' money. We're dealing with property that belongs to people for which we have assumed custody. These things ought to be very carefully protected and accounted for in a standard fashion. To me, it's not acceptable for the sheriff to say, I'm not going to do this.
What was the basic reason, I mean, kind of in response to this, what was the reason for not seeing the property room?
Well, I understand the sheriff's concerns. I really am respectful of that, in that, as outlined in his document that he submitted, the cover letter, and in his discussion with me, was he said that I wouldn't understand, not being a law enforcement person, that I wouldn't understand the constraints of having to run a jail, and that therefore I would come up, he was fearful that my recommendations or some of my concerns that I would bring up would be things that would be cost prohibitive, things that would cause slowdowns in his process, things that would be unacceptable to him and his needing to keep his facility operating in the successful manner that it operated in. I don't profess to have a law enforcement background, but when it comes to taking cash off an inmate, whether that inmate is brought in through the back door or from Mansfield or somewhere else, if the inmate's violent, I understand why you wouldn't get a signature. But if the inmate's not violent, you need to make sure that that inmate agrees with what you took from him and what you have in your custody. I think there are some basic control principles there that maybe we could have found something that would have increased his security without adding all these large dollars that he has in his document. Again, he's ultimately responsible for the jail, and again, I respect and honor that responsibility. I would have just liked it had open dialogue, and it was clear to me from the very beginning we were not going to have any open dialogue, quite honestly. I'm not the type of person that's ever going to try to make someone let me audit their area, even if you're not the sheriff. I'm not going to come out to your precincts or anywhere else. I mean, we're not best served, I don't think, nor are the taxpayers best served by us feuding, and he's responsible. And so, in this instance, we would have liked to have found some common ground, some suggestions. He was not interested in working with us.
Marvin and Ray, you heard Commissioner Brooks's question. Any response to that? You want him to repeat the question?
No, I'm familiar with the issue, and I don't think it serves the county to have 2, 3, or 4 sets of lawyers sit down and argue about whether or not someone is going, the auditor's office is going to be going into the property room. But that's what, if we want to go that way, that's what we'll end up with. If she wants to file, I think we're past the point of internally within the DA's office debating this topic. So it always is going to end up with, okay, who's got the better lawsuit? And that's why this report is written the way it is. She could have done something I think some auditors around the state would have done, and that would be to demand that a lawsuit be filed.
And I can assure you that as long as I'm the auditor, I don't see anyone being served by carrying out that unless it was something that was terribly, terribly constituting a risk for large, large sums of taxpayers' money. Otherwise, again, no one in this organization or anywhere within government is well served when we start feuding and filing lawsuits. It just doesn't accomplish anything. And the bottom line, is my understanding, is the jail is the sheriff's to run as he sees fit. Again, he is accountable for that. And in the long run, if he thinks what he's doing is sufficient and doesn't want anyone else to assist him, then I feel like I should respect that. And again, the citizens in this court and others will hold him accountable should and if there ever be concerns in this area. And so I am not ever interested in seeking court injunction on any officer or elected official in this county. It's just not the way I do business.
So under that theory, being audited by your department is completely voluntary.
Well, you could say that. Again, maybe in some other area I would be more forceful again. I'd hate to think that I'd have to go to court. I just don't think that when we can't see eye to eye, again, because I can't, even when I come in and audit you, I can't make you comply with my recommendations. And so I can...
But you do get the opportunity to make recommendations.
Yes.
And that's the point.
Yes, because that's what the law says my job is to do, is to come in, and as it relates to, county assets, county funds, county assets, to have that opportunity and to make those recommendations. And
perhaps what is needed is for you to have an open dialogue with the sheriff, and I think one of us, or all of us, can help facilitate that dialogue. I mean, I've only been in the county for a few months, but I learned one thing. In order to make county government work, the relationship is everything. And I think of having an adversarial relationship with the sheriff or vice versa. I think somehow we can sit down and over certain facilitator, a dialogue would be constructive. I agree with you. Taking each other to court would be something that we don't want to do.
I'd be more than happy to sit back down with the sheriff and his staff. I mean, a facilitator is fine. I don't carry grudges. This is not personal with me. It really isn't. This is just what I'm asked to do. This is my job. This is what I'm required to do, in my belief. And again, we attempt to do it in the best manner that we can. Again, not knowing anything about law enforcement and those aspects of it. But again, maintaining property, whether it's gravel at your yard or forms in the tax assessor's office, to some extent, there's some basic principles of internal controls and the risk associated with that I think, again, yes, we could have had some dialogue on. And then he could simply say, thank you for your suggestions, but they're too costly, or they're not cost efficient, or they would hamper our ability for safety within the jail. And then I'm going to go away. And again, that's then up to someone else to decide whether or not he really needed to hear what I was saying. I think that to say, though, that there's no problem here just because we only had $600 in losses, I do feel that that's misrepresentative of potentially what's actually going on from what my office has seen. But I'm not saying it's an enormous problem because I don't know that. But I would be more than
Your
willing.
report did say there was, what, $170,000, somewhere around $170,000 of cash in the trust funds?
Yes. And
Now,
we
does
were.
that include the amount of money they put on deposit?
That is the money that the inmates put on deposit. And we were allowed to look at that. It just, we didn't ever reach communication on what our concern was on the item that's related to the cash.
So the $170,000 does not include money that came in the back door, let's say?
No, it would include that. It includes all of the inmates' money, yes, that goes into the trust fund.
Okay, so the monies that go into the trust fund are the monies that the inmates come in the door with?
Yes.
And then, in addition to that, if a family member comes down and that person's in jail and they need money to buy
When
whatever.
the family member replenishes it, I mean, that also goes into that trust fund. But if when you're arrested, you have $300 on you, like this individual must have had, and he came in from the Mansfield jail through the city of Fort Worth, and so there was an envelope that was, it had already been removed from him, my understanding, at the Mansfield jail, so he didn't personally still have it, but that $300 that belonged to this prisoner, John Doe, was still attributable to John Doe, and what we couldn't find was a signed property form where we, the Tarrant County Sheriff's Office, took in the $300. The money was receipted, and it was reconciled at the end of the day, so we weren't saying it wasn't reconciled. We were just, again, saying that we think that the best control is that when any property is removed from the prisoner, that it's removed in the presence of multiple individuals and that the prisoner signs and agrees that that's what has been taken from him, and maybe a little bit better description of that property and, again, maintaining and completion of those forms, because the forms are not always signed, they're not always completed, they can't be found. I mean, there's a lot of issues associated with the forms, and the forms are really all you have. But you have a lot of things going on. I mean, you can have lots of chaos going on at that time. So I respect that there's mitigating reasons. Again, we would have just liked to have had more dialogue about some of that. Anyway, I would ask that you receive and file the report today.
We have a no, we don't have a motion yet. Yeah, we do. We have a motion, a second.
Yes, sir.
Any other discussion, any other questions? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And our final item for the court today is to ask you to receive and file the Tarrant County financial statements for the 8 months ended May 2012. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Move to receive and file.
Second. We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we doing your item afterwards? Yes. Mr. Phillips.
Good morning.
Morning.
It is requested that Commissioners Court approve a contract with Thomas S. Byrne for the construction management pre-construction services for the Northeast Subcourthouse expansion project.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Ms. Clem.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have two items for the court this morning. The first item, we're asking the court to receive and file the personnel agenda.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
The second item that we have for the court this morning is item 2. We're asking the court to approve the administrative services agreement between United Healthcare Services and Tarrant County. This is the long-awaited agreement
Have
before
we
the
ever
court
had one of
today.
these before?
It's been a couple of years. Not with United Healthcare. This is the very first one. We've had a letter of understanding in place since 2011 when United Healthcare was selected as our administrator. So this is our very first agreement.
Did we ever have one with HealthSmart?
Yes, we did. Yes.
You laugh.
We did. We did. As the court is aware, United Health Care Services provides administrative services for the county for our self-funded medical plans. United Health Care also provides network services as well as stop-loss coverage. This document, again, has been long awaited. It has been reviewed by legal staff. Audit staff has reviewed it for the banking arrangement agreements. It's my understanding that they're in agreement with the provisions of this document. We are estimating the fiscal impact for plan year 2012 to be approximately $1.5 million.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Has audit also approved it with regards to the incentives provided to United Healthcare?
It's my understanding that all provisions have been approved. I don't know specifically about that one. Are you referring to the performance standards? Yes.
Well, the performance bonuses that United Healthcare can get and how those bonuses can be calculated.
It's my understanding that that's all been agreed to.
I think the contract document, I think we have an issue with it. I think the issue will always be in the detail, though, of actually what they are able to present to us to actually do the calculation. There's not anything in the contract in and of itself that's a problem, nor would I expect us to have the detail of the calculation.
Any other questions? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And item 3 will come back to the court after close with that item.
Tina, could I see you right after court? Yes.
Commissioner Wynn, I believe you have an interlocal agreement.
I move for the approval of item N, 1A and B.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Fickus?
Yes, sir. Got an interlocal. I believe this is the one for Euless. Bedford. Bedford. Interlocal with Bedford. I move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Appointments?
I have one I'd like to make for the court, Cleaver Miller to the Sheriff Civil Service Board. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Cleaver Miller for the Sheriff's Civil Service Board. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Other appointments?
I have an appointment of Cynthia Duval McKenzie to Child Protective Services. She has gone through the approval process. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Any other appointments? Then you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum. Second.
A motion and a second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items, Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have two items we'd like to bring to you this morning. The first consists of an update on the South Side Fort Worth TIF, which is District Number 4. Ms. McMillan is here to lay this out.
Judge Commissioners, the Fort Worth Tax Increment Financing District Number 4, which is commonly known as the South Side TIF, was established in 1997 and is one of the first TIF districts which the county participated. Paul Payne, who is the president of Fort Worth South, Inc., and is currently the administrator of the Southside TIF, is here today to give you an update on the status of the TIF and opportunities for future projects and funding within the TIF district. So I'm going to turn it over to Paul right now.
Good morning, Judge and Commissioners. Thank you very much for allowing me this time. And I apologize, first off, that I've been in this position 7 years. This is the first time I've had the chance to address you as the TIF administrator. And now that I'm doing this, I felt remiss that I should have done this before. But I got a lot to brag on this TIF. And I don't know if you can turn around and see the slide or if you have the hard copy in front of you on your screens there. But those are the members of our TIF board. There are 10 TIFs in the city currently active. We're TIF number 4, as Lisa mentioned. We were adopted in 1997, but those are the boundary. The shaded block is the boundary of the TIF. The purpose was to reverse the decades of decay in that area and blight, and we've turned that around, and I'm very proud of that. This is the project and finance plan that's currently we're governed by. And you can see the breakdown of the areas where the funding lies. And this was put together by the city HED staff. Marguerite Allen is with me today, and I failed to mention her. She is the TIF coordinator for the city for all the TIFs. And so I'm just outsourced and to work with Marguerite Allen and the HED staff at the city. She put this chart together that shows what the projections were. So we are really done extremely well as a TIF. We have usually been recognized as one of the best TIFs, not only in the city of Fort Worth, but in the state of Texas. I'm very proud of our overall performance. This is an eye chart, I realize, but I did blow up the years on the left and then the county, hospital district, college, and water districts, just as show a point. And this is going to hit the heart of one of my questions at the end, is that right now, the county and the hospital district will reach their projected caps, respectively, of $4 million by the county and $3.5 million by the hospital district in calendar year 2012 this year. So you can see that we're reaching that cap. But back to the overall performance, 97% increase. If you take the first 2 years, which were negative growth, and threw those out and allowed from the 2000 on, we've actually more than doubled the base, and I think that's a lot to be proud of. The actual TIF dollars that were spent, for every $1 of TIF, we've directly stimulated over $360 million in private investment in the area with a 1 to 12 ratio. So for $1 of TIF, $12 of private was contributed. And overall, since established, we've had $1.9 billion of investment, and that's everything. If it's a city sidewalk or water line or whatever, private investment, hospital, anything. But that's pretty dramatic from an area that in 1995 was going opposite of everybody around us. Everybody around us was about a 2% positive when we were a 2% negative. And we turned that around dramatically. And this dramatically shows it that I'm sorry, on the chart up here for the audience, that there's a light blue piece on the bottom. The dark blue is the private. And I want to highlight a point here that each of the 5-year increments, you see that the dark blue, the private section, is growing larger than the public, which means the TIF is doing exactly what it was intended to do. The public investment has stimulated private investment, and private has continued to grow. So we're on the right track. We're doing the right things. This slide gives a graphic. I put this together of the red blocks are TIF projects, and the yellow blocks are just private, non-TIF funded, but projects that have combined that $1.9 billion. A couple points I want to show you is it's a lot. And number two is that it was a shotgun, a 12 gauge, not a rifle. That we're trying to affect the growth of everything, including east of I-35, and that was a conscious decision of all the participants in this TIF to try to jump over that geographical divide of I-35 and get investment and reinvestment in that area. And so we're doing that, and we're pushing further east and stimulating that part of this TIF. So I'm real proud of that. And here's some just overall numbers. We're pushing almost 30,000 employment base now, and that's very specific to the boundary. At first, it was hard to get because I was getting data that was to zip codes, and I was able to actually capture this data specific to the TIF boundary. So that's a good, solid number, and we continue to grow that. We got good residential occupancy, and that continues to grow, and that's important, I think, to show the point that the area's turned around and people want to live there. So that's really important. And then Magnolia, the first slide was a picture of a magnolia at night with the tree lights and a lot of activities, great restaurants, activity going on. So let me see here. Our strategic plan was done. We did a reassessment in 2003, and I don't want to dwell on that, but it gives you some of the points that we were trying to do, and we're accomplishing many of those. And then in 2012, next slide here. Yes, our goals, and that gives you a breakdown of several of the things that we're trying to focus in. We've done a strategic plan of reevaluation every year. On the streetscape projects, these are projects that are currently underway or things that we have done. So I think you'll agree with me. That's tremendous. We're going to start the Rosedale project here in September for landscaping that. Hemp Hill starts later this year. South Main we're working on, and that's a major undergoing that we need your help on. Magnolia, you've seen the effects of that. And these are some of the other, if we could continue this TIF, I think you can see we've got a lot more to do and other streets that we could do. We work very hard with the city, the T, in trying to help and improve the transportation. Last week, I'm sure you're aware that the T board voted to identify a station location inside the medical district along Mistletoe, which we think is going to be great. It's the second station. There's one up on Vickery that's tied to the TNP terminal. And we feel that with the second station, you have two stops there. It's a great commuter stop and a great opportunity for us to come up with some type of circulator for the area, which will really truly benefit all our hospitals, but in particular the county hospital and health department. And I'm very excited about trying to improve the transportation and servicing the men and women that are living in Tarrant County. And here's a diagram of a proposed concept of what that train station would look like. I'm going to go real rapid. These are just some of the things that we want to work on, improving bike parking. We're also working with the city. TIF participated in getting some bike sharing stations in our area, and that's part citywide. We did build one park. It's called Watts Park, and that's been helpful in stimulating residential growth. Mayor Price has been very supportive of the South Side, and she helped bring the bike rally to the South Side this year, and so that'll be an ongoing endeavor. The Raw Brewery Run is held in October, and their third run will be this year. The Cowtown Marathon was extended into the South Side last year, so we're real proud of that participation, and their headquarter building is now located in our area. Joe's Run moved 4 years ago from the north side down to our south side, and they've been extremely successful. They're the third largest run in the city. And then Friday on the Green is an event that we brought about and helped promote the area. It's been extremely successful and just a fun family event to come out. Arts Goggle we do twice a year in the fall and the spring, and that continues to grow in popularity, and there's some scenes from people out in the streets. So I do believe we have an amazing renaissance underway. I thank the counties for your participation in this TIF. And Judge Willey, I'd like to ask the court to consider possibly working with us to identify ways that we could contribute or continue that participation. The county and the hospital district are both hitting their caps here in 2012. I'm making an argument that we have a lot more to do. The momentum is catching on. We've got a great opportunity here. Commissioner Brooks, I thank you so much for your participation on this TIF board and all of your commitment to this area. You're everywhere. You're always seen and present, and we just thank you so much for your contributions to this area. And if you would please, I'd like to work with you in moving forward on a revised project finance plan to define terms of what a continuation may be.
I would like to suggest that we direct staff to work with Paul and others with the South Side, affectionately known as the Medical District TIF, to find ways that we can continue to participate in this TIF. One of the projects that is remaining is a project from Vickery to Magnolia, right into the front door of our hospital district and public health department. There is a federal grant that we and the TIF and the city of Fort Worth need to be able to take advantage of to improve that street, to encourage additional development on up to the front door of JPS. That's a worthy goal. So I would suggest that we have some discussions with the TIF district, and we've got the same problem with the TIF number 3, the downtown TIF district. I would suggest that we have discussions with both of those bodies and see if there is a way for us to equitably participate with the other taxing jurisdictions to extend the lives of these two TIFs.
I agree. I think that one of the things that we've done in some of the TIFs up in the Northeast and some of the other places, usually when we put the caps on there, it was based upon the original investment and what we were going to participate in of the items in that original investment.
Yes, sir.
And so what I would, as Commissioner Brooks indicated, I would like to see a revised, here's the things that we're going to go forward, Main Street, some of the things that Commissioner Brooks mentioned. But equally important, I think it is to see that everyone, that we're in the boat at the same percentages. And so I would want to see extensions by all of the other entities. And I know that the city of Fort Worth is in for property tax.
Yes, sir.
But they've benefited greatly from the sales tax, I would suspect, along Magnolia and some of the other developments that have been put into that deal. And
no doubt
they might want to consider some rebatement of some of that sales tax like they have done on some of their other types of issues. So I'm very supportive of continuing to be in the TIF but I would like to see the projects that we're talking about so that we can specifically, again, just as we did in the beginning and as we have with many of our other TIFs, identify the projects that we're comfortable with supporting.
Yes, sir.
When do you think you're going to, obviously, if we're out in 2012, then we would have to expand. Lisa, talk to me a little bit about if we potentially get above what our commitment is, can we just expand that and stay in at the same percentage?
Our agreement actually says that we're in the TIF until it expires or until we reach the cap. So we would have to revise our participation agreement to revise the cap. And again, when Paul and I talked, we said the same thing, that to revise that cap, especially now because we're a little bit tighter on our participation agreements now in terms of project plans, and that there are specific project plans that have to be followed. So we will require that we have a more specific detailed project plan if we move forward expanding or raising the cap.
And right now we're in for 100%. So
Correct.
What we might look at doing would be a reduction of the percentage that we're in for the remainder. And then at some point, I think in the future, you discuss the possibility of everybody putting in, something less than maybe 100%. So at least for the next few years, we might be in at half or some other percentage, and then as everybody else comes down, we might be back at the equal at that point in time.
And the TIF has about 10 more years left. I think it goes until 2022.
50% is the suggestion that the TIF had made. The trick is to equalize
What the other part, what our other partners are.
Right.
And we will work with the TIF district, with city staff, and with Paul, and we'll bring back something hopefully in the near future.
My
Thank you.
suggestion also included the downtown TIF. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions at this time?
Court members, a week ago to item B under briefing. This concerns the 2006 CIP. Mr. Phillips is here to address the court at this time.
I would like to update the Commissioners Court on the progress of several facilities management construction projects. First, the 1895 Courthouse Clock Tower Rehabilitation Project. The project is complete except for the bell. We learned that when a clock and a bell that's been resting in place for over 100 years, when you go disassemble it and replace and rebuild a few of the key components and try to assemble it back together, things don't always fit back like they used to.
Really?
Yes. So the bell will be working soon. Moving on to
Could have
the...
started that out a whole lot easier if you just said the bell will be working soon. But
The clock's working. When we
Clock's
put it back together, we had parts left over.
That's correct. Moving on to the new jail project, Clarence Presley, who's overseeing the jail project for my department, had a significant emotional experience last Friday afternoon. Matt Jeffrey, who's the Gilbane General Superintendent for the project, delivered these two documents to him.
That doesn't look good.
oh, it is.
This orange card,
Oh, that's very good.
this orange card represents that our new jail building received the final inspections from the City of Fort Worth building code inspectors, as evidenced by their signatures on this card.
Excellent.
This piece of paper is the certificate of occupancy that's issued by the City of Fort Worth that states that our new jail building meets all the applicable City of Fort Worth building codes. The Tarrant County Fire Marshal's Office has inspected and approved our new jail building and has sent a letter to Clarence Presley stating that fact. We have received the Public Health Department inspection of the kitchen, and it's been approved. Today, the Texas Commission on Jail Standards staff will be here in about an hour to start inspecting our jail to make sure it meets minimum jail standards of the state of Texas. They'll be finished here in a couple of days. However,
I see you're doing better. At least you got all that other stuff, and then you gave us the however.
we do have a couple of bugs in the weeds. First, I had fully intended to complete the corrections center, fire alarm, and security work next door to the new jail. I fully intended to complete that before we opened up or finished our new jail building. That won't happen. We won't finish until August. Secondly, we've had an opportunity with the stormwater drainage around our building, new building on Weatherford Street. Basically, what's happening, we've experienced over the last few months some excessive heavy rains. And at that end of town, there are no underground storm drainage systems in that vicinity, on that corridor. Thus, when that water starts running down the hill about 3 or 4 blocks, it picks up steam and it comes over the curb of our new jail building. And it enters the employee entrance underneath that door. And also, worse, it tries to fill up our electrical transformer vault with water. We had a large heavy rain of 4 or 5 inches several months ago, and it got about 4 feet deep, which is not good. We do have some solutions already in place and some more that we're going to work on in the next couple of months.
Only if we'd left that 6 foot extra that they done, we could have just dumped that water underneath it.
All right, what are we looking at?
Well, I'm assuming that we're not going to put those little barriers around the jail for the life of the jail, so. Is that the second picture?
Let's go to the first picture if we can, Judge. We have already installed these little wing walls. They're about 3 foot high. around the employee entrance on Weatherford to divert some of the water to keep it from coming in the jail building. We think that's going to work. We don't know for sure until we have another 5-inch rain. The second photo is an aerial photo of the sidewalk. It shows the two grates where the electrical transformers are. We are working with Encore Electric Delivery Company now to see about adding some pumps. They already have pumps now. They're adding some additional pumps in these vaults so we can pump more water and keep up with the volume of water. And they've agreed to actually pay for the pumps if we'll do some of the sidewalk work. So I think we're going to try that. And if that does not work, we may be adding a curb of about the same height as these wing walls around those particular vaults to keep the water out. There is this particular condition is at the Federal Building on 10th Street, I believe, where they have some of the same issues, and there's a curb around the electrical vault over there. So I'd rather not put a curb on the sidewalk, and we're going to try to do these sump pumps first. So that's where we're at, and we'll have.
Why are there no storm drains?
Commissioner, there's no storm drain system in that part of town. It's all surface water. And there's about a 10 to 15 foot drop from the top of the old Tandy Towers down to our new jail facility. There's about an elevation drop of about 10 to 15 feet. And that water is coming on down pretty quick. It'd make a good Six Flags water park ride. We're going to do some work on the correction center block. We're going to bump out the sidewalk a little bit to help divert some of the water. What's the problem? One of the problems is the ADA ramps that are required. Now it gives that water an easy access up to our sidewalk.
I kind of had it in my mind that that's what you were fixing to say. Is the ADA just kind of gives it a ramp right up to the.
Gives it an easy path to travel. So that's one of the problems. It's not dramatic. We think with these wing walls and some additional pumps, we'll be okay. These electrical transformers are made to be submersible to a point. They're not made to sit in water all day long, but they will take an extra water occasionally.
Is this view that you're showing us, is that one of the streets that links Belknap to Weatherford, or is it?
That's Weatherford.
That is Weatherford.
That's Weatherford.
Is there any plans by the city of putting any storm drains in the future?
No, sir, not that I'm aware of. That would be a significant project over there because of all the utilities, especially in this corner, because our underground electrical, gas, fiber optics, the ones we missed a few years ago, it's all over crisscrossing in that street. Could be done, but I think it would probably take a bond election to do it. There's no stormwater around those facilities at all. Underground stormwater. And that's all I have on the jail.
What about the sinkholes out front? Didn't we have a little?
I would say this. I watched the water come up and bust up the asphalt yesterday, and the water starts spewing out of Weatherford Street, and not 15 minutes later, here comes the City of Fort Worth Water Department. And they had it fixed by 4 or 5 o'clock, and it's done. And I was pretty amazed. But they've got that patched, and they're repairing it now, and they did a great job.
Okay, good.
Lastly, on the Tarrant County Civil Courts Building project, the excavation of the site has begun. And that's all I have this morning.
That's enough.
Thank you.
What's the estimated date of completion on that?
Civil Courts, first quarter of calendar year 2015.
Thank you. I'm right. Per Mr. Phillips, in blood.
He needs to sign it.
And you're retiring in
Last quarter.
last quarter of 13.
14. Your Honor, that's all we have at this time.
We will recess our open meeting to move into closed to discuss items exempted under 551.071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Government Code. I did that about 10 years ago. I mean, we literally took nothing but grass and we put it in the backyard. Having returned from our closed session, we'll now address the following matters. I wasn't sure whether we were addressing or not.
Yes, good afternoon. I would like to request the approval of a promissory note between Tarrant County and Jimmy E. Garcia for revocation of tuition reimbursement benefits. Mr. Garcia is terminating employment, owing the county for past tuition reimbursement totaling $1,678, and a payment plan has been provided to you in this promissory note.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
That's all we have at this time, Your Honor.
There being no further business, we're adjourned.